Hi, I'm Yolanda Cope-Stepney and you're listening to Speak On. We talk all things culture, society and wellbeing. Hi, I'm Yolanda and this is Speak On and I am a black woman. I'm not angry, I am not strong, I am not your best friend, I am not your free therapist, I am not your cheerleader or your motivator, and I am not the magical Negro who is going to help your life move forward in a meaningful direction. I'm just a black woman. I am just a woman. Why have I said all these things? Because for some reason, people think the monolith of being a black woman, often portrayed in media and perpetuated by stereotypes and racism, means you are all of these things, and whether people like it or not, whether they know it or not, they treat and react to you according to these stereotypes. The flip side of all these tropes and labels? Dismissing the feelings, pains and needs of black women. We are overlooked, we're ignored, we can be treated poorly, and the most extreme side of this, we're left to die in hospitals. Whoop! Because people think we have a higher pain threshold because we're just so motherfucking strong. Black women will save you all with our radical love because we're so caring and we're so strong and we love unconditionally even when we ourselves are in trouble. But what if I said... We're done saving you. We're not here to serve you. We're just trying to live our lives. These tropes are damaging to our mental and physical health and uphold the systemic racism and sexism we face every single day. We're exhausted from carrying racial trauma and people's dumbass problems as well. I've heard so many times, you're so strong, like it's a compliment, but I'm not stronger than you. I just have different priorities than you. Black women don't have the time or capacity to sweat the small stuff. We're not given the time or allowance to be vulnerable, upset or scared. I'll give you an example. When I worked somewhere and my uncle was dying of cancer, this is a good long time ago now, I was exhausted, I was upset. So I had a meeting with my line managers because I needed to take time off. I started to cry because I was so emotional. They looked at each other and guffawed and then went on to tell me I didn't look tired, I looked great. Why? Because Rebecca and Laura, and yes, I have said their names, couldn't compute that a black woman could be vulnerable. They could comfort other white women in the office who cried over, frankly, compared to death, pretty minor things. But their sympathy just didn't extend to me in the same way because that trope is so ingrained in them and it's so ingrained in society. It's hurting black women, it's ruining our lives, and guess what? That actually makes me angry. So today I've invited my awesome friend, Dr Yvette Arthur, to talk about the dangers of these stereotypes, the role they play in racial trauma and mental health, especially for black women. Hi Yvette.
Hello, thank you. And that was an amazing introduction to the topic. And I felt your position on many levels as a black woman.
Oh, wicked. Thank you. I was going to say, how do you relate to it? And what are some of your favourite labels that I may have missed out? What tropes have I missed out in there?
Well, as I said, I'm a black woman. I'm a mother. I'm a clinical psychologist at the moment. And a lot of the terms that I get straight away is, wow, you're a mum and you're a psychologist and you must be so strong. And immediately there's no space to say, I do cry. I do get stressed out. I bleed blood. I don't bleed blue magic.
Yeah, exactly.
And stuff like that. So I relate to it on a personal level. I was raised by, I feel, a strong black woman, but she had to be strong. And it feels different because you need to connect it with people's experiences and where they've come from. You need to put it in context rather than let it linger that we're all strong black women. We've had to be strong. We haven't had a choice sometimes. Put it in context so we can understand it on many levels. I think you've covered all of the many tropes from the mammy.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are influenced by American kind of film, actually. So the mammy, that slave who suddenly has come into the home as the servant, the help, and she's very caring and nurturing, especially of the white female in the house as well. And then we move on to maybe the Jezebel. So that one about black women having this insatiable sexual appetite that you can't kind of feel, and always being sexy and being quite admired, especially by the white male, and wanted as a secret desire, though, not in the mainstream desire. You can't outwardly say that I like black women and I'm intrigued by them. It's always on the down low. We kind of saw that a bit, I feel like, in Scandal.
Yes, definitely.
She was definitely desired, but she had multi-layers, and I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, what they call sometimes in American kind of literature, the sapphire or the siren, and that is the angry black woman.
Yeah.
And that was definitely, I think, a revolt against all of this mammy and being sexy. But also it hit us hard in terms of, okay, anytime you raise your voice, you're going to be angry then and being labelled as such. And it's interesting because it felt as though the strong black woman was ours. We put that together as a way of contesting against the mammy, the Jezebel and the sapphire. But it's being used against us. Absolutely. Within us, amongst us, and against us in terms of everything that you rightly said. Yeah. You can't share vulnerability. That example that you shared, and it's not even funny, but it's like you have to laugh because
you have to laugh because what else could you do with it?
That's like you've already cried.
Yeah,
that's an everyday experience of just choosing to kind of share that vulnerability to your managers and it being denied in a sense and invalidating. And what you do with that then is you internalize it and you keep going and so forth. And it's so damaging. And I'm so grateful to be here today because I'm really passionate being a black woman. I work in a psychosis service, I should say, as well. Psychosis is one of the severe and enduring mental health difficulties that affects everyone in the population, less so than depression and anxiety, which is about 1 in 3. Psychosis is about 1 in 11, but a lot more so in the BAME community and a lot so amongst black women as well. So really, really passionate about this topic.
And I mean, I can completely understand why this happens because there's only so much you can continue to internalize before you just collapse in on yourself like a dying star. And it's just, and then this is the result. And that's why I really wanted to talk about it, because when I recorded the How Racism Feels video, there were so many people that were surprised. They were surprised that I cried. They were surprised at my vulnerability. And that actually made me kind of pissed off because one, I'm really open that I don't like racism. Guess what? I don't like it. And I say a lot. Exactly. Yeah. We don't like it. We're not enjoying it, man. It's really fucking annoying.
Never have, never will.
Exactly. And you know, I've said it so many times. I've written it online so many times. And then when I cried, people that knew me well enough were like, yeah, I get it, because they understand it. They see my vulnerabilities. They see me as a person. Other people were like, oh my God, I was just, you know, it's because I see you as this strong person. They didn't realize that it played into those stereotypes they have in their head. And also not many of them realize as well how much they use me as a free resource for their non-problems, because I'm seen as being like strong. They think, oh, that's fine, I can tell her because she's fine, because her life is so together. Or a thing where people don't offer to help you or support you because they think you've got everything on lock. Running my own business, the amount of unreliable staff I've had, because they're like, well, you're fine, you get through things. I'm like, that's fine, because you won't have a job again. So it's kind of, but all of it plays into this, doesn't it?
It does. And I think it's such a barrier, as you said, in terms of the way people respond to you crying. And everyone cries. And I know that men sometimes say, oh, I never cried before. Yeah, right. You're biologically, you are made to cry. And the fact that people kind of highlight that and exaggerate it, it just makes you think, okay, I'm not going to do this again then, if that's how you're going to respond to it. Or are you seeing it as a weakness? And that's why you're highlighting it. And crying is definitely not a weakness. You can still be strong and cry because you're a human being. You are entitled to all sets of emotions. As a strong black woman, you can still be strong and cry, and you're entitled to that. And I also align with people kind of packing on all of you as the resource and as the source and center of everything that they can come to, putting things on you, wanting things on you, and actually you don't realize that it depletes us. We also need to be filled. We don't have this never-ending source of energy that we're connected to. We also need to be filled up sometimes. We also need to be taken care of as well. And that all comes from acknowledging our vulnerability. And if society's perpetuating that we're not vulnerable, we're always strong, amongst us as well. Because sometimes that can come from us black women ourselves. Amongst our friendship or our family, saying that you're strong, you're okay, you know, you're born and raised in the UK. What have you got anything to complain about? And it's denying my experience on another level. I may not be back home where you had to go and fetch water at 6 a.m. But sometimes it's hard getting on the tube at 8 a.m.
Exactly.
And having to fight your way. Don't deny my experience.
Absolutely.
And so forth. And even also amongst us Black women who, you know, some of us might not have children at this time in life or have children, and then comparing experiences of who's the strongest and who's stronger. And that is just so invalidating.
Absolutely.
And,
I was talking to our producer actually about this, because when I was leading up to this, we always have chats about every subject we're going to do. We have a good old chat about it, what we think about it, work out the questions. And I was explaining to her, I was like, yeah, you know, the problem isn't just external, it's actually that it's become quite internalized as well. So for example, and I'm really, really open, I love therapy, I go to therapy, I've been to therapy. Therapy's dope as fuck. I can't think of anything else to say, because you should be talking about stuff, you should be getting out there, and there are resources there to help you, so you don't have to just, again, collapse in on yourself like a dying star. And when I've been through the most difficult times of my life and I've turned to therapy, it's been really, really helpful. And one of the things that I realized is, well, because I was actually leaning a little bit too much on my Black friends, because they are my best friends, but then also because all of a sudden it was like a lot of stuff happened and it was like everything boiled over, and then I was like, yeah, I've got to sort myself out because then all I did was just trigger them and everything else, and we all needed, by the end of it, we all needed therapy. But then also I found that I was getting, there was some friendship groups that I belonged to where actually I was getting no sympathy from the white women because they didn't see my pain, vulnerability, or whatever else. And not that there was a hierarchy for problems, but the things that were happening were some of the more extreme things in life. And they were like, well, you didn't come to my party, so you're rude. And I was like, well, I just saw a corpse, so I don't know what you want me to do. They didn't get it. And some of the people in that group that were Black, they were like, oh, you know, I've been there before, you'll be fine. And because they were dismissing it, because they've internalized the strong Black woman trope, they were then diminishing that, what those white women had done to me in that group, and therefore then backing them up on their lack of being there for me as a friend. And in the end, I just exited. I was like, I just moonwalked out of the room of that group, because I was like, none of these dynamics are good for me. But it was really interesting to see the effect of someone who internalizes, I am a strong Black woman all the time. And how actually it's damaging to all of us, even if you don't know you're doing it, but we need to stop.
I agree. I think that's such a good example, because again, it's highlighting that we shouldn't just be hyper vigilant of our white counterparts doing this to us. Actually, we have internalized it a lot. Sometimes it's necessary. It's like acknowledging, okay, when is it necessary? If I'm working in a workplace where there's all white people and I am the minority, yes, at times we need to be strong, because in the face of people questioning us, oh, you've got a different hairstyle today. We need to be at 9 a.m. as well, wicked time. Horrible. We need to be strong in that sense so that we're not erupting, but also we need to find that place where we can get rest and kind of sit down and be ourselves. And when we internalize it amongst ourselves, we're not allowing ourselves to do that.
Absolutely.
At all. So I think that's such a good example. I know that me being a mother as well as like a working professional, sometimes it is hard to find that space. Because people are kind of caught up in the fact that, oh my gosh, you're a psychologist and you're a mum, and it's like, but it's hard. It's still hard, and you need to give me space to kind of express that, rather than getting caught up with, oh, you must be amazing. I am amazing, but I'm still a human being.
Exactly. Doesn't take away from anything, but you still need some rest, and you still need some care. So kind of all this being said, do Black women have a right to be angry? Let's think about these tropes. Do we have a right to be angry with all this stuff going on?
I think we do. The reason I'm saying that is because in terms of being a female, we are oppressed because of our gender. We already know that we've come so far in terms of women's rights, having equal access to education, but we know that there's unconscious biases in terms of what kind of areas of work people think that we would be good at, thinking about STEM, the science, technology.
Engineering, maths.
So people already think that we're limited in that respect, and we've come far in that. And then you also get on to thinking about pregnancy and maternity. And usually you see that after women have children, they lessen their hours at work. So that affects career progression. So generally as a female, and that's what we share with our white feminist counterparts. What we don't share with our white feminist counterparts is that intersectionality and that further oppression of being Black. Because we're also a minority in our ethnicity. And if you take it back in terms of slavery, the black female slaves were out there picking cotton alongside their black men, and we're viewed as equally strong as them, and so we have reason to be angry. We're usually the ones who were thought of last.
Yep.
In society, we've seen that with Breonna Taylor as well, and everyone's kind of saying, okay, where's that justice for her?
Yeah.
And the experience of females, we see that a lot in terms of sexual assault, and black women are less likely to seek help for trauma or sexual assault in that respect. So we have a lot, I think, to be angry about. Our voices have been removed from us for a long time.
Yeah.
It's come so far with the white feminism or the feminism movement, but because that was mostly white, we need to continue to make more spaces for us. So definitely, we have a right to be angry.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, there's a whole separate podcast on white feminism and how non-inclusive parts of feminism are. I mean, I've had some horrific incidents where people, they just don't get things. Oh gosh, I won't even go into it now, it's too long. So where, you talked a little bit about where these stereotypes have come from, like with the mammy and everything else. Where do you think things like the black best friend, where has that stereotype come from? When the fuck did we become free therapists, and when did we be like, yes ma'am, you tell him you don't want him, you're too good for him, now go get your man? What, I don't know, where the fuck did this come from?
I feel like, again, it's going back to film has such a dominant kind of influence on us, and American film especially, and if we can't be the mammy, we're refusing to. You're not going to tell us that we're the help. Yeah. Okay, you could be our best friend, and that feels safe then. Yeah. Especially, I think, for maybe our white or non-black counterparts, at least if you have a black best friend, it's okay. You're not racist. Again, your topic on how to be anti-racist, I think that fulfills those people who think that I'm not racist because I've got a black friend. Yeah. It feels very safe. It's positioning us as this source of resource. Yes. As free therapy as well, which I don't think is right. But very much it makes us safe and approachable if we're this best friend. We're kind of being tokenistic in our snapping of hands and clicking our necks and stuff like that. And it fulfills that kind of, that we can be safe if we're best friends. But that limits us as well, because we're not going to agree with everything that you say. Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? We're not going to sit back like, hold on a second. You're not going to touch my hair because you think I'm your friend. Like, there's limits to this. Yeah. And I think us as black women are noticing that actually we have to challenge that a bit more, because if we allow people to feel, we have to let people understand that you can say things with me, but don't say that to every black woman. Yeah. Because we are not a monolith. We are not the same. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, they're really, I love that you were saying that point about there are things, because of course, I feel like so many people have non-black friends that can say things like, you can't say that to anyone else. You can say it because this is an in-joke that we absolutely get, and that's fine. But if you say that to someone else, they are gonna knock you the fuck out. Yes. and I won't be there. Exactly. And also, I'd be okay with that, because this would be offensive to other people. So exactly. It's like people put themselves in some strange positions because of that. Exactly. And I think really finding ways to go against this. We are not, when this monolithic structure that we've been placed within as black people, it is challenging, but it's something that really needs to be done, because I think it's the only way we're going to like progress past some of these. And I can, even the stereotype of the black best friend in films, it's like it feels like a way for filmmakers to make a film diverse without ever centering a person of color, without ever centering a black person of color. But this film's diverse. Her best friend's black. The supporting actress is black. Of course this is diverse. We gave them the second role in it. So so then I think we need to start pushing towards that shift as well. Exactly. So how damaging it is to our health, and that kind of that part that this plays in kind of racial trauma and everything else. Talk to us about that. I mean, in some ways it's important to note that it can help us survive, because I don't want us to feel as well, okay, we need to throw the whole strong black woman in the bin. Actually, it helps us to survive. I'm thinking about when my mum came to this country, probably about 40 years ago, and there were signs on doors that said no blacks, no Irish, and no dogs. And literally she came here probably when the bus was like 10p to get on the bus.
Yeah.
And she used to get paid like £9 a week, like very, very long time ago.
Yeah.
So in a way, and she came here with her brother. Her mum wasn't here. Her sisters weren't here. So she had to survive as a black woman.
Yeah.
And that sometimes meant being strong. I think it's pulling apart that black woman there's so many branches of it. Maybe one of those is a strong woman, but there's so many branches of it that make up what it is. So we've had to be strong in some respects, but the impacts that it has on our mental health, I mean that black people in general, they face inequalities and challenges to their mental health, such as racism and stigma. We know that black women, as compared to white women, are more likely to experience common mental health difficulties, and those percentages are around 29% versus 20%. PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder, is higher in black women. So that's obviously being exposed to like sexual assault, domestic violence as well. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying in the beginning about feeling pain.
Yeah.
Actually, if you think that, okay, you've been through, someone's hit you on the bus as a black woman, like, you're strong. Why are you in pain? That denial of experience. We know that black women are most likely to self-harm. And to me, that's a big one that speaks of kind of denial of our experience and really internalizing it. Feeling as though there's no way for you to kind of talk about it openly. And therefore, it's so unhelpful to our mental health. It stops us from seeking help in that way because we internalize this being a strong black woman. The institutional racism about, okay, how it would be when we finally go to our GP and share what we've been experiencing. Will the GP kind of say, but you're strong, you'll be fine, or just give you medication? All of those things that are unconscious biases formed by racism kind of keeps us in that position of having to be strong. As well, we know in services as well, black people are at a disadvantage in terms of worries around risk, and thinking that, okay, as a black person who's experiencing psychosis or mental health challenges, you're going to be violent, which is so wrong. And therefore, you might be giving medication at the first point of call rather than being offered therapy and a space to talk as well. So there's many layers that I think it links with racism. I also think that in terms of racism, we're most likely to be the support for our black males. And we experience that differently in terms of, in the UK, black males are most likely to be subjected to stop and search. But we're also the ones supporting them through that trauma and perhaps encouraging them to seek help. And as we know, black males are less likely to go to their GP and talk about these things. But we're always in that position of helping, and we're taking on a lot. And therefore, what does that do to us? It encourages us and pushes us to that position of being strong. Which isn't right as well.
And it's a really good point you make as well about kind of supporting black males, because, you know, if we have brothers, uncles, whatever else in our lives, sons, etc., we are supporting them. And as also, you know, we're in a country where there's a lot of interracial relationships. And so I have found that I have to support my black male friends and family who are dating non-black women, have non-black partners. Their partners can't relate to their experience entirely, and it's not like they may not be in a position where they're either learning or they know to learn as well. It's not that they're doing anything wrong. They do not know. They do not understand. They don't understand the wider issue, and so therefore we're then supporting black men through their relationships and coaching them through their interracial relationships, and that's really hard work.
That is hard work. I think it's quite confronting as well, because you question kind of where the heart of that relationship is if you're having to step in and give so much support around it, as well as, again, being the free therapist.
Exactly. Well,
and resource.
Also another one that something I noticed, because my mum used to be a youth worker when I was younger. And even now she still works in for charity organisations, etc. But when I was younger, we constantly had lots of white mums in particular, not black mums, white mums in particular of mixed race kids, because we do know that mixed race children with white mums, or mixed race black children, I should say, because mixed race can mean anything, but mixed race black children with white mums have a very different racialized experience from black children with black mums. I think they kind of they don't understand. Well, obviously you're not going to understand racism if you haven't experienced it. And so my mum was then also helping those women, because they couldn't turn to the men in their lives because it's always women that are helping. And then she's also counselling people with their their black children as well. And it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff when you kind of weigh it all up, right?
It is a lot. It is a lot. And I think it's a lot of invisible work that we're kind of providing for free. I'm imagining that within that she's probably doing people's hair or kind of suggesting hair products to use.
Yep.
Which is always a common question, but it's it's like an invisible workforce that we're kind of not acknowledged for.
Exactly. And people just think it's like, well, it's part of your experience. This is your life. This is how women behave. This is how black women behave. So it's fine. Yeah. This is normal for you, isn't it? But actually, it may be, but we don't want it to be anymore. It'd be nice to have a little bit less work to do, honestly, or or get paid for it at least. Run me my coin. Run me my coin,
please. Now. I agree. We should be acknowledged in the work that we're doing and so forth. And completely agree. 1000%.
Yeah. So we covered a bit of that, and we've talked about racial trauma, how damaging everything is. How does all of this play into like kind of the hardcore racial trauma that we are experiencing from just everything else, just from living in the white matrix? How do these stereotypes kind of play into that? We touched a little bit on what can happen to you in hospital, for example, but what else is it doing?
I think it's keeping us in a position of having to cope with our difficulties by ourselves, and internalizing it. I believe that also might have an impact on how we relate to other people in our life as well. So if we're not able to kind of say what we're feeling because we feel as though that goes against this strong black woman, or people don't even give you a space because there's so much like, oh, you're amazing. We somehow then pour it out in other ways. So that might look like maybe abusing substances. So that might look like drugs or alcohol, which again goes against the impression that women don't use things in that way as well, and that being assigned maybe more to men, and so forth. And also in our parenting as well, that might have an impact there. If we're internalizing it, and then we have the pressure of trying to be a parent and trying to nurture children, that internalization could definitely have an impact. I think also in the workspace as well, that is a big one. I recently did a talk because this strong black woman, it means that we kind of censor ourselves, because if we're strong, sometimes feels very close to being angry. And now if I'm in a meeting and I'm feeling like, okay, what that person said doesn't sit with me, we're thinking in our head over 20 million ways, how do I say it so that I'm not strong? How do I say it so that I'm not angry? And then we might choose to be silent. And actually how that is interpreted within the organizational world, which I hope change, is that you're timid. And we know full well that we're not timid. Right? Because when we're arguing with our brothers and our family, we definitely have a voice, but it's so difficult to know how to translate that into an organizational world so that we can come across as being assertive. And not angry or too strong. That we can kind of mow everyone and knock everyone down physically. And so I think it impacts on our career progression. And so forth. So that's one of them that come to mind.
That's a really good one, because I think that self-editing really is damaging. I remember there was a point in my career where self-editing like really damaged me. I went for a manager position. He was like, well, I chose this other person because I think they're just going to be more assertive about doing stuff. And I was well, actually they weren't going to be. It's just that I constantly, at that point, I couldn't articulate it. And it was a white man I was speaking to. What the hell is he going to know? So I actually couldn't say, actually, I am more like this, and I am really straightforward in my emails. When I first started that organization, I was really straightforward in my emails, and I was told that my emails were rude. They weren't rude. They were just straightforward, because I was like, so then I had to change it to, hi darling, how are you? How's your day been? And it's like, no, I don't give a crap how your day's been. I just want to know if you've done the goddamn work I asked, because I have 5 minutes, but I couldn't even be straightforward. So of course I was self-editing down to the point where people see you as meek, because, or that you are unable to do your job, because it's like, well, actually I would love to come barreling in here, because truly out of all my friends' personalities, I definitely have a more bull in a china shop kind of persona. I would actually love to embrace that more. I would have liked to back in the day. Now completely like that, but that would have been great for my career, or would it have been? I don't know. Or would it have meant that I would have been
maybe it pushed
called
you
into
to other
a meeting?
areas.
Exactly, yeah. Would have been called into a meeting about my behaviour. I don't know. You just have to self-edit, and that's a really, really good point. And I think it's something I definitely would like to see eradicated, so we can have better career progression as well.
Yes, exactly. And we're self-editing also on what we wear.
Yeah.
How we choose to have our hair.
Yes.
So I remember being on placement when I was doing my studies for my doctorate, and on the first day I dressed up in like a pencil skirt and like a smart shirt, and there was like another white trainee started at the same time, and she was in her trainers, her jeans, and my supervisor at the time, she was very much like, this is white privilege, because she's just rocked up in any way, and I'm thinking first impressions count, because that's what I've been taught, and I know that people can judge you straight away. And then in terms of our hair, I wear my hair in all. You saw me last time, so you know my hair was different. I wear my hair in all, it depends on how I feel, but I know that, okay, if I have my natural afro hair out, people are going to think, okay, is she making a statement now? So then that will influence, okay, what meeting do I have? Do I want to be seen as making a statement? And I feel as though it's time to move past that as well, because it is affecting our career progression. And also in terms of men being at senior management, we know that men are most likely to be able to kind of be a bit more outspoken about their achievements. I don't want to say lie, but maybe kind of big up the truth a bit more, whereas women in general might be more humble, and that might be further exacerbated if we're black women as well. So I think that's really, really important to highlight as well, that difference between assertiveness and being angry. And I know I've seen a couple of trainings around how to be assertive in the workplace as a black woman. And I don't know if I totally agree with it, because it kind of feeds this unconscious bias.
That we still have to keep self-editing and changing, as opposed to the world has to change to just accept that we can speak in the same way as someone else and we're not being assertive. Being assertive and we're not being aggressive. I mean, I worked somewhere where this woman, she used to just kind of come across the office and then start shouting at people. And she was white, she was blonde hair, blue eyes, really big eyes and eyelashes, and once she came and just shouted at me, and I just laughed, because I was like, I don't know who she's to think she's talking to, but if I wasn't in work now, she would have got the ass kicking of the century. But I'm like, I'm in work, so I just laughed and carried on with my work, and everybody was like, oh my god, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm fine. This is me self-editing. But then the fact is that she thinks that she can do that because her white privilege allows her to stomp around the office doing that.
No one's gonna check her.
And I know if I did that, they would have called security.
What?
So it would have been
police.
Exactly. I would have been like taken into the office, because I've seen other people get upset and fully be like, are you okay, being taken to HR? But she could go around screaming in everyone's eyes and kind of do what she wanted. And that's again why I self-edited there so much, because I was like, this, if I wore something, it would cause a 30-minute conversation. I'm here to do my work.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong.
Exactly.
My fashion is dope, but I don't want to talk about it. That's not what I'm wearing it for. I'm wearing it for me, not for a conversation or for someone to talk for 20 minutes about my hair at the beginning of a meeting. I'm just like, hun, I'd rather just wear a baseball cap and you ignore me and just get my work done.
Exactly. And I want to say, in that situation, actually, you not saying anything, because some people might say, oh, you should have said something and stuff like that. Actually, being a strong black woman, or being a black woman who can be strong when you want to be, is also about self-preservation. You don't always have to give, actually, because you're not there to be her mentor, you're not there to be her teacher. That's other people's job. And part of it is acknowledging, like, I don't have to enter this battle, actually. I can preserve my strength for something else that is a bit more important. And that's not giving up. That's not being non-resilient in that situation. Actually, that's even being even more resilient to preserve ourselves. And we need to start speaking about it in those ways, rather than always being seen to, you have to always challenge everything. No, we don't. It's not our job.
No, we don't. And I always see when people are doing things like that, I'm like, do you know what? My dad always taught me, it's like, one, if your name's not above the door, you need to care less. But also, or if I'd get angry, he'd be like, all right, shareholder. And remind me, I'm not a shareholder.
I like that.
But then also he was like, well, people that behave like that aren't happy. Happy people don't behave like that, and people that behave like that in work aren't winning at home. And so because of that, that was a thing that really always helped me get through when I had these things. I'm like, if she was winning outside of here, she wouldn't feel the need to come and scream in my eyes. Like, Sarah, you just calm down and you'd come across, speak calmly about what it is you had to say. And then you would have the conversation, but whatever's happening in her personal life meant that she thought it was all right to go around screaming at everyone in the office, and I just made me pity her in the end instead.
Yeah.
So, oh, poor Sarah. But anyway,
No.
just go around.
Hope she got the help that she needs.
I know, right? For real, for real. She used to do it a lot as well, and I was like, "Wow, Sarah, you need to chill, girl." So, how can non-black people in our lives better support their black friends through this as well? Because we've talked about something that, you know, and we've said not a lot of people know they're doing this. I know that some of my friends don't realize that they use me as a free resource for their problems, except like my friend Alison is brilliant at this. She is white and she's very aware, and she is like, I am so sick of you being used as a free resource for all these people. I am so tired, especially of men, because I hate it when guys always want advice from you. Don't give them free therapy, just tell them to go to fucking therapy. She hates it so much. But how can, I mean, the exception of Alison telling everybody to go away, she's brilliant.
I know, I need an Alison.
Everyone needs an Alison, honestly. How can our non-black friends like support us through this and like kind of make sure that they're not doing these things, but also help keep others away as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. I think it starts from acknowledging why this stereotype is damaging, that literally it doesn't allow us to be a full human being that we've been made to be, in terms of being able to experience all of the full range of the emotions. I think, as we kind of talked about with racism, it starts from acknowledging that it does exist as well, and that it's harmful. I think then also it's about being curious about the other's position. So if you have a black person in your life that you know you feel comfortable, ask them first if you can have this conversation. Make sure they've eaten, they're not tired, they're not angry before you kind of start it. But if it feels safe, you can have these discussions about actually, I've noticed, and that's why I said if it feels safe, don't turn on anyone when it's lunchtime. Please don't do it. But if it feels safe, just being curious that I've noticed that there is this strong black woman stereotype. How does it feel for you? And that gives honor to acknowledging this. It means that you've done a bit of education, and you want to know what my experience is, and you acknowledge then that we're not a monolith, rather than saying, oh, I've read about being a strong black woman and it means da-da-da-da-da-da-da. No. Then I will let you go with that information. So acknowledging that every black person has different experiences, open up conversations. If your black friend comes to you and says, actually, I've had a really bad day, just listen. Don't add in, oh, but that wasn't so difficult, but you're strong. You've been through worse than this. No. I think what we know about racial trauma, it's not about the last incident that happened when someone hit you and called you the N-word, and that made you angry. That made you feel as though you can't go into work again. It's like the domino effect of a range of traumas that have happened, a range of racist remarks, a range of microaggressions, unconscious biases, and then it kind of builds up over time. So allow that person to kind of express, even if it feels quite small, allow them to share it. If the person's crying, let them cry. Don't kind of say, oh, don't cry, you have to be strong. Take strong out of that dialogue, please. It doesn't belong there. And I think checking back in with your black friend, especially if you notice that I've had messages from people that I trained with who were white, after I was posting a bit more on Instagram, and they kind of checked in and said, like, you don't have to do this work, and thank you for all that you're doing. Even like a thank you just acknowledges it and allows me space to kind of say, yes, it is difficult, it is demanding at times, and so forth. But I think it goes a long way to acknowledge. Also challenging stereotypes, I think, in your own white spaces. People kind of saying, oh, she's always strong, or she's always angry. Challenge that, actually. Maybe black people are a range of characteristics, and we are all angry and we are all strong at times. And that's not unique to being a black person or unique to the black experience at all.
Yeah, it's just being a person, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. I
think, we've said a few times, we said strong so many times here. And I think it's kind of almost like maybe worth us, just in a really rough way, defining what strong even is, because people think that strong means the absence of feelings, the absence of vulnerability, the absence of tears. But then, you were saying before, you can be strong and you can cry. You can be strong and you can be this. So what would you say that strong is? Do we just remove it entirely and say, do you know what, this is just nonsense? Or is it that we kind of we say, no, this is actually what strong means?
I think I really, really like that. Because in a way, the definition of the strong black woman has been selfless, self-reliant, dependable, resistance to being vulnerable and so forth, strong obligation to help others, like everything that would tear someone down. Basically, this person is like Teflon.
Yeah.
And I think it's acknowledging and giving space for the terminology of strong enough feels more hopeful, because that gives space that you can be strong enough in certain situations, and there's other situations where you can show your vulnerability, and actually showing your vulnerability is still a sign of strength. And I think that's how we reclaim it. We need to redefine what is strong. Strong doesn't mean that you don't cry at all. And in a way, there's nothing wrong with the word strong. We have to be strong in certain settings, but strong and vulnerable needs to go hand in hand. And I think that can only be captured by being strong enough in certain situations. So we know that we have certain, let me just say, like there's long life Tesco plastic bags that we have.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be really strong, especially because we're bloody buying them nowadays.
Yeah.
And they're described as being strong. But if you look on the bottom, it will kind of say, okay, if it gets really ripped, you can return it. Because there's an expectation that, yes, this bag is strong, but it can only withhold so much weight. And that's the key thing. You can have a really, really strong table, but actually if you put your whole fridge and everything in your house on top of it, it will break. And that's why we think about the term strong enough. It gives us more permission to kind of be ourselves in that. And also be strong enough in certain situations, like as you described at the workplace. You had to be strong enough to withstand that nonsense that was happening.
Absolutely. And that place was bullshit. So, it really was at times. It was crazy.
Gosh.
The stuff was so mad there, even though it was a place where lots of international people worked. People still didn't like white international people. That's how mad this place moved.
What?
It wasn't even, I know. I was like, what is happening? It was xenophobic. It was racist. It was wild. It's just honestly. So how can we talked about like how our friends can support us, how other people in our lives can support us. How can we take the steps, not to support ourselves, but how can we take the steps to start dismantling this within ourselves and I suppose kind of alleviating ourselves of this, like kind of moving over from strong to strong enough? How can we start taking those steps? And obviously therapy, but how else can we start doing
Agreed.
this? Yeah.
I think it's really acknowledging that it's okay not to be okay. And I know that we've seen that loads on social media, but it's about thinking about what that looks like. Do not deny your experience. You've had a really tough day at work. And then you're thinking, okay, I just need to be strong. I need to be grateful for this position. Actually, you can still complain. You can still share how you're feeling and still be grateful. We need to stop seeing it as either or. You can be both at the same time. And almost like, I always think about children. I've got 2 children, by the way, and my son is 4, and he will literally be crying in 1 second. The next second he'll be smiling. And I like that, because even though it's like, he's quite emotional at times, but it just shows that you can be both at the same time, and it doesn't take away from who he is. Like, if he wants to express himself by crying, then so be it. And then if he wants to be laughing in the next second, then so be it. So it's kind of reclaiming that vulnerability. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say that you're upset, that you're unhappy. It doesn't take away from you as a woman, as a Black woman. We know that you are amazing. You are very resilient already. You don't have to prove anything to us as well. Actually, we know that about you, the fact that you survived and you keep going. I think another one is we need to start asking for help and not seeing it as a sign of weakness. Yeah. Because one of the things that happens in larger organizations is that we kind of get loaded on with a lot of work. And then because we want to prove ourselves, and as I said, we've already proven ourselves, we do the work and we're burnt out. But then all of our colleagues are kind of saying that you're amazing and I can't believe you managed to do 10 things off your agenda in an hour or something crazy like that. When meanwhile, we're struggling. We're hungry as well because we've missed our lunch. We're working until 10 p.m. Like, it's just not helpful. We need to start asking for help. And that can look like something small. We need to start trusting other people with things as well. And yes, we know that we are amazing. We have a special eye to do things. But actually, you can find people who can carry that vision forward with you. We can go further when we do it with people rather than doing it by ourselves. And also, again, I will again highlight, it means that we're not denying our pain. We're not denying our emotions. And we're seeing it as part of being a human being, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's let it all out. And I kind of like I forgot her name. How to Get Away with Murder. The protagonist. Oh, her name's gone from my head. But she definitely portrays, you know, being strong in a sense, and then also being quite vulnerable and crying. And there's a scene where she's really devastated about something, and she takes
Olivia
off her.
Pope. No.
Yes.
No.
No.
Olivia Pope.
How to
What's
Get
her name
Away
again? Annalise Keating.
Annalise Keating. So she was definitely strong and resilient.
Viola Davis?
Viola Davis, yeah. But her character, it showed so many levels of being a black woman. And there's a scene that she takes off her wig. Ooh. On screen, she removes her makeup. And just in her showing that vulnerability, she cries at times. You see her going to therapy. We have to acknowledge that doesn't take away from who she is. Actually, it actually makes her, it adds spice and salt and seasoning to who she is, because she can relate to so many people on various levels. We need to stop seeing it as a hindrance and see it as actually a strength.
I remember that. The eyelashes, everything comes off.
Yeah, everything. It was quite a scene, but it didn't take away from her being amazing.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we'll kind of, I think we can wrap up on, I suppose, saying, I don't know, if you've got any kind of, what words of wisdom do you have for our fellow black women when it comes to this? What would you like us to do next? What would you suggest?
Such a good question. I think it starts from within us. So us acknowledging where at times we've had to be strong at a default. And that goes into the strong enough statement.
Yeah.
So us acknowledging where there's times where we've been overwhelmed, we've been stressed out, we've wanted to cuss the person in Tesco.
Yeah.
And it's not about the person in Tesco, it's because we're struggling to deal with so much. I think we need to start acknowledging where we need help, where we're struggling, where we feel overwhelmed. Part of that may be seeking therapy. Part of that may be talking to our friends and our loved ones, but we need to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And thereby, I think if there's a change within us, that influence, imagine if all of our friends are having that internal kind of dialogue and internal reflection, all of us are going to therapy, then we influence each other.
Yeah.
And then we kind of, that outpours to our white friends, our white female friends. And then that outpours to maybe the white male friends. But I think it really starts with us.
Oh, lovely. That's such a lovely place to wrap up. And definitely, I hope that everyone listening takes that forward as well. And, you know, it's all about, you know, there are some great Instagram and accounts and places online, like self-care for black women in particular, because we are having a really specific intersectional experience. And, you know, we see the tropes on TV and, you know, and it's so damaging to us. And like you made a really good point earlier, film, TV, kind of those media representation really does shape how everybody sees everything. And yeah, it can be hard to kind of rally against that. And I hope that in film and TV, they start to present these more complex black characters as opposed to just this really kind of reductive kind of character. And also, people, please don't just think things are like this because you've seen it on a film or in TV.
Exactly. But we know with racism and stereotypes, like, especially if you're living in an area that doesn't have a lot of black people, you kind of think everyone is how you see them on TV.
Yeah.
It is not like that.
It really isn't.
Come to London.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised.
So surprised. You know, there are still people that are surprised that I snowboard. And I'm like, yes, of course, I can snowboard. It's fine. Sometimes black people snowboard.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it surprises. They were just like the weirdest things surprise them. That just seems so normal to us. It's like, what? I don't understand why this is weird. But yeah, so I really hope that everybody's found this really useful. Where would you like people to find you online? Would you like them to follow you online, or where? And if so, where?
Yes, I'm on Instagram at the moment. So I'm Dr Yvette Arthur. So Dr spelled in the usual way. Yvette is spelled with a Y, Yvette, and then my surname. And then I'm on Twitter, Yvette Arthur 9 as well. I'm also on LinkedIn for a bit of people maybe want a bit of the professional. I'm definitely someone who wants to advocate around mental health, especially in the BAME community. I do a lot of talks as well, just normalizing mental health and making it so that mental health professionals seem less scary as well, because I think that's quite important. And then also around helping and aspiring clinical psychologists as well in the field.
Brilliant.
So definitely give me a follow, and hopefully I'll share things that are of interest to you.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Yvette, for joining us. And I'm really excited as well about when we have our next Speak On series, which will be about mental health. Hopefully, Yvette will join us for that too.
Yes.
But yeah, amazing. That'd be so cool. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yes,
and remember,
please.
we're not just all angry black women. If we're angry, it's actually just because we're angry, not just because we're black. Okay?
Yeah.
Take that away with you.
Yeah, exactly. The angry person.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Bye.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Speak On. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, co-workers, strangers in the street. To find out more about us, including our upcoming events, head over to Instagram, instagram.com/speakon_. Bye!